If you asked me when I first knew something was wrong, really knew, not just suspected, it was that night in October, a random Tuesday, when I happened to glance at Haley's laptop. The screen was still glowing from where she'd left it open, probably expecting to come back in a minute. She was out on the back porch taking a work call, pacing in her socks. I remember the condensation on the glass door where she'd left it cracked open, that chill of fall creeping in. And I swear I wasn't trying to pry. We'd always been open about tech. She used to say she liked that I wasn't weird about passwords or protective of my phone like her exes. We shared a calendar, logged into Spotify together, synced our grocery lists, all that domestic sync-up stuff couples do without thinking. So when I walked past her laptop and saw a file open, I didn't think twice about leaning in. It was a receipt, PDF, scanned and auto-uploaded to her cloud. I noticed the header first, Northbridge Labs travel expense report. But it wasn't a flight or a meal like usual. It was for a hotel, the Harborview Luxe in Boston's Seaport District. The breakdown stopped me cold. One night stay, premium king suite, breakfast for two, late checkout, valet parking, romantic package add-on, complimentary prosecco, bath salts, rose petals. For a split second, my brain short-circuited. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Someone else's file? A system error? But then I saw her name listed in the reservation confirmation. Haley W. Carlson. The charge was on her corporate card, dated 3 weekends ago. Same weekend she was in Boston for what she called the Innovation Summit. I kept staring at the file like it might rewrite itself. Maybe it was part of a shared group block booking? Maybe the breakfast for two and romantic package was some hotel perk they gave every room? It sounded thin even in my head. My stomach started that slow acid churn that makes you feel like your body knows something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. Then I opened her calendar. She'd logged the event. Summit, 7 p.m., plus 1A, Pierce. Her boss, Adam Pierce. She never mentioned they were presenting together. Never mentioned him at all, really. Said it was just her team, some panels, and a tech mixer. I remember asking if she wanted me to come along, maybe make a weekend of it. She said no. Told me it was all business, and too boring for me to waste a Saturday tagging along. She even FaceTimed me from the hotel gym the morning after, acting tired and annoyed by the early sessions. That was the first time I felt it. A shift in the air. Something cracked. It was subtle, but once it cracked, I couldn't unsee it. Just to be sure, I checked her rideshare history next. It wasn't locked, not then. She must have forgotten to log out. There it was. Pickup. ICA Boston, 12:43 a.m. Drop-off, Beacon Hill. No return trip. No ride back to the hotel. No ride home. I sat there staring at the screen, my throat dry. Not because of the receipt or the rides, not even the mention of Adam Pierce, but because it all fit too neatly, like it was just enough information to tell a story, but not quite enough to prove one. When she walked back in, the porch door clicked softly. I didn't even hear her at first. I think I was holding my breath. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "You look weird." I turned the screen toward her without saying anything. "This was open," I said. She squinted, leaned in, and then, I'll never forget the shift. The way her eyes scanned it quickly, then settled into a cool, collected calm. She didn't flinch. She didn't stammer. She gave this little half-laugh, like she was slightly annoyed but still amused by my concern. "Oh," she said. "Yeah, no, that's just an expense thing. I already talked to accounting. They messed it up." I waited for her to keep going. She sat down across from me, pulled the laptop closer, and started walking through a whole explanation. Said she and a few teammates had dinner at the hotel restaurant after the summit. Something about room blocks being reserved for leadership, but the team used the space for a client dinner, and the front desk must have tagged the wrong name to the receipt. "It's probably just bad labeling," she said, waving a hand. "Our expense software is such a mess lately." She even went as far as opening her corporate dashboard to show me a string of receipts. A sushi dinner, an Uber XL for 5 people, some dry cleaning for branded apparel. All grouped around the same weekend. It was convincing. calculated, even. Then she turned it on me. Honestly, this is why I didn't want to bore you with all the details. It's just a bunch of work stuff, she said. You know how chaotic it gets around summit season. Finance screws up everything. I had to resubmit half my receipts last time because someone fat-fingered a date. She laughed again, as if to emphasize how absurd it all was. She even started tapping at her phone while she talked. That subtle deflection, like she was already moving on, already past it. I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have a smoking gun. I had context, suspicion, a gut feeling. And one thing about gut feelings, they're easy to dismiss when the other person is calm, articulate, and practiced at making you feel like you're the one overreacting. We didn't talk much after that. She said she had a late client call to prep for and disappeared into the office. I cleaned up the kitchen, poured myself a whiskey, and sat on the couch wondering if I'd just imagined the whole thing. But I hadn't, and somewhere deep down I knew it. Because that night she didn't kiss me goodnight. She didn't even look at me when she walked past the living room. And from that moment on, something about us, about her, felt a little less solid. Like we'd shifted onto a different track. And I hadn't realized it until I was already moving in the wrong direction. After that night, nothing in our house felt quite the same. And I don't mean dramatic. Like, everything changed overnight. It was subtler than that. Slower. Quieter. Like something had shifted underneath us. And the floorboards were creaking in places that used to be solid. I kept telling myself maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe the hotel receipt really was a mistake. Maybe +1A Pierce on her calendar was just how she labeled co-presenters. Maybe the missing Uber return trip from the museum was just her catching a ride with a coworker. I wanted so badly to believe her, to believe that I was just overthinking, overreading, overreacting. But the thing about pretending not to see the signs is that once you start noticing, really noticing, they're everywhere. The first thing I caught was her phone. It used to sit face up on the counter or coffee table, unlocked with a lazy swipe. But now it was always screen down, even when she was home. Notifications stopped popping up entirely. She said it was focus mode, because she was trying to limit distractions. But then I noticed that even when a call came in, she'd get up and leave the room to answer it. Every single time. She'd say, "Work stuff," with this tight smile, and I'd nod like an idiot. Even though when she came back, she wasn't work Haley anymore. She'd be quieter, distracted, like her mind hadn't come back into the room with her. Then our shared calendar, the one we both used religiously, started to dry up. Appointments vanished. Work trips didn't get logged. "Oh, forgot to add it," she'd say, casually waving it off. And yet, her mileage kept going up. The car, which she barely used outside of commuting, suddenly had hundreds more miles on it week to week. I once asked her where she'd gone on a day the tracker showed 92 miles. She said, "I went to the printers and took the long way home." 92 miles? One night, she came in late from what she said was a yoga and wellness night with her coworker Denise. She walked straight past me, dropped her gym bag in the hallway, and went to shower. I checked the studio's site out of curiosity. They'd had a private instructor training that night. No client bookings. I didn't say anything. I just filed it away. I started doing that a lot. Filing things away, like the cash withdrawals. We'd always been card people. Everything went on a spreadsheet. But suddenly, every week or so, $80 here, $120 there, always in cash, always logged as miscellaneous or tips. I saw a wellness retreat charge tagged under my name, one I didn't attend and definitely didn't authorize. I asked her about it once, lightly. She rolled her eyes and said, "It was part of a vendor promo we all got. Just easier to expense it under you since you're technically a dependent on my health benefits." It sounded logical enough. It also sounded rehearsed. Then there was the cologne. A warm, woody scent. Something with cedar or amber in it. Not mine. Never mine. It showed up in her car first. Then on her coat. Then once on a scarf I picked up for her from the hallway floor. When I asked about it, she laughed and said, "You're being dramatic. Probably from a Lyft driver." It's hard to explain, but after a while, the house stopped feeling like it belonged to both of us. I was still here physically, folding laundry, checking the mail, restocking coffee pods. But emotionally, I felt like a tenant, like someone renting space in someone else's life. She stopped inviting me to her work events. We used to go together, all dressed up, making jokes in the lift ride over about the people we'd end up stuck talking to. I liked those nights. They felt like something we did together. But then she started going solo, said I wouldn't enjoy it, said it was just work. One time, she introduced me at a casual dinner party with some colleagues, just as Luke. No, my partner. No, my boyfriend. Just my name, like I was the guy delivering Postmates. I started checking her email. I hated that I did it, but I also didn't stop myself. Her inbox had invites to meetings that weren't on her work calendar. Things labeled strategy check-in or off-site vision mapping. A couple of them were scheduled for weekends, and all of them were with Adam Pierce. I checked her rideshare history again. Pattern emerged. She'd often go to the gym after work, except the yoga studio didn't log her check-ins anymore. And those same nights, her Uber rides would show a drop-off near the seaport, or the North End, or in Beacon Hill again, and no return. She'd walk in the door just before midnight, flushed and breathless, like she'd just finished a run. She once said she lost track of time in the sauna. I nodded, even though my chest was thudding so hard it felt like a threat. I even remember one Sunday morning. I found a post-it note inside her car's sun visor that said, R305, ask for desk key, check mirror, remove tag. When I brought it up, she said it was an old post-production note from a photo shoot. Said they'd used a hotel room for lighting tests. Said it wasn't a big deal. But our 305 didn't sound like a studio. At some point, I stopped asking questions. Not because I didn't want answers, but because I was afraid of confirming what I already suspected. Instead, I started documenting. Quietly, I began taking screenshots, logging dates, keeping receipts. I wrote down every excuse she gave me and matched it to her GPS data. I wasn't trying to build a case. Not yet. But I needed to feel like I wasn't losing my mind. And all the while, Haley just kept getting more polished, more collected. Her stories got tighter, her tone more careful. There was always a good reason, always a logical explanation, always a deflection. It made me question myself. She'd say things like, "You're acting paranoid," or "You're projecting stress from work onto me," or my personal favorite, "You really need to talk to someone. You're spiraling." And maybe I was, because it's hard to feel grounded when you live in a house full of mirrors. Every angle shows a different reflection, and none of them feel like the truth. Still, I kept hoping I was wrong. That all this, the deflections, the scent, the vanishing appointments, the excuses, was just noise. That things between us were just in a rough patch. That we'd talk it out one night and laugh about how paranoid I'd gotten. That she'd roll her eyes and say, "You seriously thought I'd cheat on you? With Adam Pierce?" But the truth had already started unraveling. And no amount of hope or silence or denial was going to stop the thread from pulling loose. I didn't know it yet, but the unraveling had only just begun. The moment it became undeniable didn't come with a fight. It didn't come in some big cinematic blow-up. It came in the form of a museum gala, glass sculptures, ambient jazz, and a friend whispering 5 words that cracked my whole reality in half. It was the Northbridge Labs Innovation Summit, the same event Haley had gone to in Boston weeks earlier, the one I now couldn't think about without replaying that hotel receipt in my mind. This time, though, it was local. She couldn't avoid inviting me without raising suspicion, especially since some partners were welcome for the final night's closing gala. I figured if there was ever a chance to get clarity, this was it. She looked stunning, honestly. That hurt more than I expected. Her dress was a deep sapphire blue, the kind that catches light like water. Fit too well. Her makeup was done but not overdone, like she'd perfected the balance between elegance and effortlessness. I stood there next to her, a suit on my back, a glass of white wine in my hand, and a growing sense that I didn't belong in the scene we were pretending to share. Then Adam Pierce walked in. I'd never met him in person until that night. He was exactly what I imagined. Clean-cut, expensive smile, a tan that didn't come from New England winters. The kind of guy who called everyone my friend and clapped backs like he owned your spine. Haley lit up when she saw him. I don't mean she smiled. I mean she changed. Her posture straightened. Her voice softened. And she leaned toward him like she was being pulled in by gravity. He touched her back. Briefly, but with familiarity. And they exchanged a glance I've only ever seen between people who already know what the other one is thinking. I tried to pretend I didn't notice, that it was all in my head. They broke apart when someone from PR asked for a photo. Adam stood next to Haley, his hand resting lightly, and unnecessarily, on her waist. I was standing 3 feet away, and in that moment, I was invisible. I watched them all evening. Watched how often they found each other in the crowd. Watched how they leaned in to speak just a little too close. Watched how his hand brushed her arm when he passed her a drink. And I felt like I was watching a story that had already been written. I just hadn't read it until now. Then came Mia, Haley's friend. One of her closest, actually. I'd always liked Mia. She had that sharp, observant kind of energy, the kind that noticed what people didn't say. We'd bonded a few times over our mutual love of podcasts and dry humor. But tonight, she looked uncomfortable. I caught her watching Haley and Adam with the same expression I probably had. Tight-lipped, conflicted. She pulled me aside near the exhibit of blown glass installations. "Luke," she said, voice low, eyes darting. I turned to her. "Yeah? I don't know how much you already know," she said, fidgeting with the strap of her clutch. "But I can't keep pretending I don't see it. You deserve to know the truth." I stared at her, my heart hammering. "Know what?" She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all night. "I found copies of expense reimbursements that were submitted under your name. Ones Haley filed. There are bookings, restaurant bills, parking charges, boutique hotels. Not just from Boston. From New York, Providence. All processed through internal channels and tagged with off-site strategy or wellness." I blinked. "What are you saying?" "They weren't group events," Mia said quietly. I checked the logs. They were for 2 people. Same receipts, always listed under team budget lines. Always involving Adam. My mouth went dry. She reached into her bag and handed me a folded printout. A rental contract. A short-term lease for a riverside loft. Signed by Adam Pierce. But listed under emergency contact. I saw Haley's email address and her personal phone number. Mia wasn't done. She flipped her phone toward me. Screenshots. A thread of messages, not from Haley, but between Adam and one of the admin assistants. They read, "Use calendar B for Thursday. Haley and I need a space off books. Nothing in the system. No overlap with finance until Q4 audit." I felt the ground shift under me. It wasn't speculation anymore. It wasn't even suspicion. This was a paper trail, a digital signature of deceit. A quiet, methodical pattern of choices stacked one after another. All while I was still showing up every night with groceries and dinner plans. "Why are you showing me this now?" I asked, my voice shaking. Mia looked at me, her expression pained. "Because I thought maybe it was just emotional at first. That it would stop. But it didn't. And then when I saw the reimbursements under your name, I couldn't pretend anymore." I didn't have time to respond, because just then, I looked over her shoulder and saw it with my own eyes. Haley and Adam, slipping through a service hallway door. She glanced behind her once, then followed him through. The door didn't close all the way. I saw it. I walked slowly across the gallery, passing a group clustered around some abstract video installation. My feet moved on their own. I wasn't sure what I'd do when I got there. Part of me wanted to rip the door open and scream. Another part felt like a passenger, numb and dissociating. But I didn't have to guess. Through the narrow crack, I saw them, kissing. Not like something new or thrilling. Like something familiar. Like something practiced. I backed away before they saw me. For a minute, I just stood there, staring at a wall of light projections I couldn't even process. My hands were shaking. I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body. I walked back to the coat check and asked for both of our things. The attendant handed me her coat with a smile. "Did you enjoy the gala, sir?" I didn't answer. I walked outside into the cold night air, dropped her coat on the passenger seat, and sat there in silence with my hands on the wheel. Inside my jacket pocket was the printout of the lease. I unfolded it again. Read her name. Read his. Reread the date. Everything felt crystal clear, sharp in that way only betrayal can be. Like suddenly every lie snapped into focus. That night I didn't go home. I drove to my brother's place, parked in his driveway, and slept in the car for 2 hours before knocking on his door. I didn't tell him everything. Just enough. Just what I could say without breaking apart. Haley texted me around 2:17 a.m. "Where'd you go?" "Luke, call me. Please." I didn't answer. There was nothing left to ask. And the next phase? It wasn't about understanding anymore. It was about evidence. About clarity. About reclaiming every inch of ground I'd given away in blind trust. That night marked a split in my life, the before and the after. Before. I was trying to rationalize her stories, fill in the blanks, give her the benefit of every doubt she asked for. After, I stopped asking. I stopped waiting for her to hand me the truth, because now I had my own. I didn't go home that night. I stayed on my brother's couch, staring at the ceiling, running the whole scene on a loop in my head. The whisper from Mia, the receipts, the loft lease, the messages, and then, of course, the kiss. The one that told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't some heat-of-the-moment mistake. It was practiced. Familiar. A routine. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I just felt hollow. Like someone had scooped everything out of me and left the shell standing. By morning, I had one thought, cold and clear. Document everything. I started with her digital trail. Every file I could access, shared drive folders, expense portals, calendar backups. I knew her passwords. She hadn't changed them yet. Maybe she still thought I was in the dark, still playing the part. I dug into the expense system first. Sure enough, there were team strategy meals listed under my name. Meals I never attended. Wellness reimbursements for appointments I never booked. Some of them were marked confidential internal event, exempt from itemization. I flagged every single one, took screenshots, downloaded PDFs, organized them by date. I found more hotel bookings, not just the Harborview in Boston, but a spot in Newport, another in the Berkshires. They always had the same markers. 2 guests, upgraded packages, valet, spa dons. Every time, the reservation was made by Haley, charged to her corporate card, and labeled under department development or off-site ideation. I created a folder titled Evidence, H. Carlson/A. Pierce, and filled it with every receipt, PDF, log entry, and email thread I could find. Then I pulled her GPS logs. I didn't want to install anything new. That would cross a line I wasn't willing to step over even now. But her iCloud was still synced to our desktop. She never turned off location services. I opened up the location history. The pattern was undeniable. Wednesdays and Fridays, she'd go work late. The GPS showed her bouncing from her office to coffee shops near the seaport, then over to the loft address listed in the lease Mia gave me. Sometimes she'd stay for 2 hours. Other nights, 5. Always after 6 p.m. Always before midnight, like it was a ritual they'd carved into the workweek. I printed every route, every timestamp. Then I checked parking records. We shared a garage pass that logged every in and out time. Her badge showed entries at odd hours. Sunday nights, early Saturday mornings. One morning at 4:12 a.m. The same date she told me she'd gone on a sunrise hike alone to reconnect. I pulled every one of those logs, lined them up next to her stories. They didn't match. The deeper I went, the less I recognized the life I thought we had. The more organized I became. I started using spreadsheets, cross-referenced dates, matched Uber receipts to hotel stays, location logs to calendar gaps. At some point, I realized I wasn't collecting this for me anymore. I was building a case. Mia called 2 days later. She had already submitted an anonymous compliance report to Northbridge's internal ethics portal. She gave them everything she had, copies of the expense reports, the lease, the messages between Adam and the admin team. I asked if she wanted me to back her up. No, she said. They'll do their own digging. You just focus on protecting yourself. So I did. I called our bank and froze the shared credit line. Not a joint account, thankfully, just a supplementary card linked to her reimbursements. I told them there was suspicious activity and asked them to issue a new card with my name only. They flagged the most recent wellness retreats and boutique charges. I requested itemized statements for the last 6 months. Then I called a lawyer. Her name was Sandra, and she didn't flinch when I explained the situation. She listened quietly, scribbled notes, then said, "Good, you're calm. That's the most important thing." I gave her the folder. She flipped through the receipts like they were tax documents. "This," she said, holding up the hotel PDF, "is going to be useful. And the reimbursements under your name? That's leverage." I nodded. I didn't feel angry in that moment, just exhausted. Sandra explained next steps. No direct confrontation yet. Let the corporate process play out. Document everything. Keep my name clean. Don't engage in any narrative, even when she inevitably tried to shift blame. "Facts," she said. "Only facts." When I got home that evening, yes, I finally went back. Haley was in the kitchen making pasta like nothing had happened. She smiled when I walked in, as if we were still us. "Hey," she said. "I was starting to think you were avoiding me." I didn't answer. She kept going. "I know things have felt a little tense lately. Work's been insane. Adam's got me covering for 2 teams now. Stupid. He's drowning and I get stuck holding the rope." She was talking about him, casually, like she hadn't just kissed him 72 hours ago behind a museum. "You've been quiet," she added, eyeing me. "Everything okay?" I looked at her. Really looked. Same eyes, same voice, same person. But suddenly I could see the entire performance. How well rehearsed it was. The way she'd gotten better at sounding like herself even as she pulled further away. I nodded. "I'm fine." That night I didn't sleep much. I wasn't angry. I was preparing. She sent me a text the next day. "Hey, sorry for being off lately. Can we do dinner tomorrow? Just us?" I didn't reply. I backed up her calendar instead. Her personal one. The one she thought was private. A week later, Northbridge launched an investigation. They hadn't named names yet, but it leaked fast. Someone from finance flagged overlapping budget entries and the pattern of unapproved expenses. Mia texted me a single word: "Happening." I didn't smile. I didn't feel victorious. But I did feel something close to relief. Because for the first time in months, the truth wasn't mine alone to carry. By the end of the week, it was official. Northbridge Labs had launched a formal internal investigation. No names were released publicly, at least not yet, but word spread fast through the office grapevine. People noticed Adam's absence right away. His name disappeared from the summit recap emails. He stopped replying in threads. His camera was off during leadership calls. Then eventually, his name stopped appearing in meetings altogether. The rumors started as whispers. Suspended pending review. Breach of policy. Finance flagged something in audit prep. Most people assumed it was about budgets. A couple of coworkers even speculated that Adam was finally being held accountable for favoritism, that he always gave extra visibility to the same few people, Haley included. One person joked in a Slack channel, "Guess Adam's calendar was a little too flexible." Haley pretended not to notice. At home, she played the part of the exhausted employee caught in corporate turbulence. She sighed a lot, took calls in hushed tones, told me over dinner that legal was looking into everything, and it was probably just a compliance miscommunication. I didn't respond, just nodded and passed the salt. The thing was, she didn't know what I knew. She didn't know that Mia had already turned over everything. That screenshots of their off-calendar bookings were now in the hands of internal audit. That the lease for the Riverside loft, the one she signed as an emergency contact, had been flagged for overlapping with Northbridge's housing stipend reimbursements. She didn't know they'd already cross-checked the meals and off-site strategy sessions with her name or mine, for that matter. And I wasn't going to tell her. I wasn't going to warn her, defend her, clarify anything to anyone. I was done playing the role of the supportive partner who covered for gaps she created. Now I just observed. Haley was officially placed on unpaid administrative leave 4 days after Adam. She came home early that day, hair tied back in a loose bun, wearing an expression I hadn't seen on her face in years. Not anger, not sadness, but something closer to panic. "I got a message from HR," she said quietly. "They're pausing my account access. Just temporarily, while they sort things out." She didn't look at me when she said it. She just dropped her bag, walked to the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of wine. "They're being insane," she muttered. "Like they actually think I did something unethical. As if taking initiative on offsite planning is some kind of crime." I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. I just kept reading the article on my phone like I hadn't heard a word. That same night, a major tech blog posted a story. It was buried at first, a short feature in the corporate misconduct section, titled, "Favoritism and Financial Abuse? Internal Investigation Rocks Northbridge Labs." No names, no direct quotes, but the details were unmistakable. A C-suite leader, a subordinate mentor in marketing, patterned reimbursements, misuse of company funds for undisclosed trips, an anonymous whistleblower with documentation linking 2 employees to a shared off-site residence billed as department housing. They even mentioned the romantic package from Harborview Luxe in Boston. It was all there, worded like a slow-burning exposé, designed to avoid lawsuits but written with enough specificity that anyone who knew Haley or Adam wouldn't miss the subtext. I refreshed the article 3 times. Then, quietly, I emailed the link to myself just in case it disappeared. The fallout wasn't dramatic at first. No arrests, no screaming matches, just silence. Tight, tense silence at work and at home. Slack channels went quiet. Haley's name was removed from company-wide email threads. I noticed that her phone stopped buzzing altogether. At home, she spiraled slowly. The kind of unraveling that's hard to spot unless you're looking for it. She stopped wearing makeup, started pacing the house with a glass of wine before noon. She said she was calling legal, calling PR, calling people who understood the real story. She started saying things like, "They're trying to smear me," and "This is just corporate politics." Once she tried to spin it to me. "I think I'm being used as a scapegoat," she said one evening, curled on the couch with her laptop. "You know how companies are when leadership screws up, they go for the easy target. And let's be honest, I'm an easy target." I didn't answer. She kept going. "People are jealous, Luke. They see a woman moving up and they assume she slept her way into it. It's disgusting." I let her talk. I watched her carefully, waiting to see if there was even a flicker of remorse, a crack in the act. But it never came. Just more deflection, more victim language, more "they don't want women in power." She didn't once ask me how I was doing. Not once. Instead, she started asking for help, quiet, manipulative requests. "Could you write a character reference for me? Just in case?" Or, "You remember I stayed in that hotel for the conference, right? You could confirm that if someone asks, yeah?" Each time I gave the same answer. No, that was it. One word. One refusal. Eventually, she stopped asking. Northbridge issued a public memo 2 weeks later. Still no names, but the consequences were clear. Due to recent findings during an internal ethics and compliance review, we have adjusted leadership staffing and revised corporate reimbursement protocols. As part of this process, relevant personnel have been placed on indefinite leave pending legal review and restitution discussions. Behind closed doors, I heard that Adam was negotiating his exit with legal counsel, that he'd likely resign for personal reasons before the quarter ended. Haley hadn't received formal notice yet, but she was spiraling in anticipation. That week, she tried to get ahead of the narrative. She posted a thinly veiled Instagram story. Sometimes when women speak up, they get silenced instead. Truth will win eventually. A few friends messaged me. Some sent it with a question mark. Others with, "Is this about what I think it's about?" I didn't respond to any of them. Not one. I had made up my mind. I wouldn't protect her. But I also wouldn't fight her in public. I wasn't going to let her paint me as bitter. I'd let the facts speak. She tried to regain control at home, too. Started cooking dinner again. Suggested movie nights. Said things like, "We can get through this if we're together." As if this was a we problem. I just nodded and watched. It was like watching someone try to bail water out of a sinking boat with a spoon. A week later, the blog posted an update. This time, they had more details. An unnamed employee had processed over $13,000 in out-of-policy expenses across 6 months, including travel packages, short-term rentals, and luxury hospitality services labeled as strategic retreats. Another paragraph clarified. Some expenses were billed to the account of a non-employee partner, now identified as an unknowing proxy used for reimbursement submission. That was me. I read that line twice. Then again. Someone, likely Mia, or one of the compliance officers, had told the truth. That my name had been used without my knowledge. That I'd been, at best, a cover. At worst, a prop. Haley didn't mention the article. Instead, she quietly disappeared into her office for most of the day and drank half a bottle of wine by evening. I didn't press her. I didn't say, "I told you so." I just kept breathing. She finally got the call the following Monday. I didn't listen in, but I knew from the silence that followed. That long, gut-punched quiet. She sat at the kitchen counter for almost an hour after, staring at nothing, the phone still in her hand. She said, finally, "I've been suspended pending final review." I didn't look up from my laptop. "That's unfortunate," I said, keeping my voice flat. That was the last real conversation we had. Haley sued for wrongful termination and gender bias, calling the evidence irrelevant. But Northbridge's legal team presented hotel bookings, off-calendar meetings, and the misuse of my identity in reimbursement forms. Mia testified. I gave a timeline calmly. The board ruled against her. She was ordered to repay misused funds, and her case was dismissed. Adam quietly resigned. No appeals were filed. She left signed divorce papers on the counter and moved out without a word. I kept the house. Our finances split clean. Mia returned the files and stepped away. I rebuilt in silence, no chaos, no begging. I spent time with friends again, focused on what was real. Eventually, peace came not from answers, but from the quiet that followed. No more lies, no more blurred lines, just space. Honest space, and that was enough.